He said it with a fork in his hand, a little smirk curling under his mustache. "Maybe try getting a real job, like normal people," he muttered, loud enough for the whole table to hear. "Stop this consulting nonsense." Everyone laughed, my wife, her mother, her two brothers. A family chorus. I smiled back, the polite kind, controlled, distant, because that's what you do when someone mistakes your silence for weakness. But in my head, the laughter had already gone quiet. It wasn't the insult that bothered me. It was the assumption that I needed his approval. I lifted my glass. "You're right, Frank," I said softly. "I'll think about it." And I did, all weekend. For years, I'd been the outlier in their family. They measured success in titles, promotions, pensions. I measured mine in freedom, control. Frank was the patriarch, the loud voice, the man who'd built himself up from nothing, as he liked to remind everyone before grace. I'd known his type my whole life, men who confuse obedience with respect, hierarchy with stability. He believed power only existed in institutions. He had no idea how fragile his kind of power really was. Because I didn't just consult, I acquired, silently, strategically. And 3 months earlier, through a shell company he'd never heard of, I'd begun the quiet process of purchasing his employer, a mid-tier logistics firm bloated with complacency and ripe for restructuring. I hadn't planned to reveal it this way, but his words sharpened the timing. That Sunday evening, my wife asked if I was upset. "About Dad's joke?" she said. "He didn't mean it." I smiled. Of course he didn't. She looked relieved, kissed me goodnight, and turned off the lamp. But I lay awake, watching the faint city lights draw pale lines across the ceiling. Every insult becomes leverage when you learn to store it properly. By morning, I'd already moved the closing date. The acquisition finalized at 9:42 a.m. Monday. By noon, the paperwork was sealed. By 3, my legal team had sent the internal memo. Corporate restructuring, new ownership effective immediately. That evening, I sat in the back of a black sedan parked outside his building, watching employees trickle out. I didn't feel satisfaction, just inevitability. The air in the office lobby smelled of disinfectant and paper money, clean, clinical. A receptionist handed me a visitor's pass, her hands trembling. The news had already reached them. On the 12th floor, his assistant was crying quietly at her desk. "The CEO's waiting for you," she whispered. I nodded, adjusting my tie. When I entered the boardroom, Frank was already there. He didn't notice me at first. He was pacing, muttering under his breath. His phone buzzed with missed calls. He looked smaller than I remembered. The CEO cleared his throat. Frank cleared his throat. Frank turned and froze. The silence that followed was pure. "Good to see you again," I said calmly, pulling out a chair. He blinked, his mouth opening and closing without sound. "Is this some kind of restructuring?" I said. "Corporate's term, not mine." He tried to speak, then stopped. I watched the moment he realized this wasn't revenge born overnight. It was too complete, too clean. I placed a folder on the table. "Your retirement package," I said. "It's generous. I suggest you take it before the board reviews the expense reports you signed off on." Color drained from his face. "You wouldn't." "I already did," I said. He sank into the chair, eyes wet with disbelief. "Why?" I leaned forward, voice quiet. "Because you told me to get a real job." That night, my wife called me from her mother's house. "Dad's furious," she said. "You can't just—" "I didn't fire him," I interrupted. "The company did. Restructuring." "You own the company," she snapped. "Yes," I said simply. She was silent for a long time. Then, in a smaller voice, "Did you plan this?" I hesitated. The truth hovered between cruelty and clarity. "I planned everything," I said. The line went dead. He tried to fight it, of course. lawyers, meetings, appeals, but it was too late. Every signature, every transaction had been checked twice. By the end of the week, his name was removed from the payroll, his parking pass deactivated, his legacy rewritten in the language of redundancy. My wife stopped speaking to me for a few days. Then, slowly, she did again, half out of fear, half out of understanding. Because she knew what I'd done wasn't anger, it was correction. I visited him once more, weeks later. He was in his garden, wearing an old shirt, trimming roses. He didn't look up when he saw me, just said, "You got what you wanted." I studied him for a moment. "No, I got what I earned." He exhaled, the kind of sigh men release when they realize they've been measured by a standard they never understood. "You humiliated me," he said quietly. "No," I replied, "you did that yourself. I just let everyone see it." He turned away, shoulders sinking. For a second, I almost felt pity. Then I remembered the brunch table, the laughter, the smug tone, the way my wife looked at me then. Pity died where dignity begins. Now, when people ask what I do, I